Well, for more on this story, we're now joined by Vinicius Rodrigues Vieira, an economist and professor at the Armando Alvarez Penteado Foundation. He's joining us from Sao Paulo. Vinicius, the Merkosur bloc's saying it's already conceded quite a lot, and putting Lula da Silva's deadline to one side, surely the bloc wouldn't still want to be involved if it wasn't going to reap the rewards from such a deal?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. In fact, like President Lula said, Merkosur has already conceded a lot to the Europeans in order to reach a deal. However, given that now the Europeans want to impose a kind of safeguard against import surges coming particularly from Brazil and Argentina in the agricultural field, I don't think that the deal is any longer worth for Merkosur producers. So President Lula is right in saying that either the deal is now completed or in the future there will be no any further possibility. The agreement has been negotiated now for over 30 years. The first talks began in 1995. The actual talks, the actual negotiations in 1999. So if the Europeans are still wanting concessions, it's quite impossible for Merkosur countries to do anything, particularly in other fields like manufacturing, from which the Europeans will benefit a lot.
OK, European farmers, though, are setting their crops on fire in the streets, which you've got to think is not the best start to any potential deal. One of the issues being raised is the difference in health and environmental standards. And at face value, that would seem like a reasonable concern, is it not?
Yeah, I totally agree that European farmers, they have a point about being concerned about environmental regulations. The European Union itself is quite well known for having very tough environmental regulations over its farmers. But that's the case, at least with Brazilian regulations. Mercosur don't have joint regulations regarding environment. Each country has its own regulations. So perhaps in Argentina, some of the regulations are left to the provincial level. But as far as Brazilian legislation is concerned, that's very tough in terms of the limits for instance, deforestation. Moreover, due to market pressures, more and more producers are concerned about getting certifications in order to sell their products in Europe. So talking about unfair competition between Merkosur producers and European producers is not quite right. Although, of course, the fear of what is coming in the future for the European farmers is right. But that shouldn't be something that should lead the European leaders to give up the negotiations of this stage.
Can we look a bit broader? We know that the US has changed geopolitics markedly in just a short space of time. Is there more to just meat and soybeans in this deal?
Well, the deal, everyone thought that it was first ready to go about 6 years ago in 2019. But then President Bolsonaro here in Brazil preferred to establish further linkages with President Trump in his first term in the United States. Now I think that whatever the Europeans decide in terms of establishing more, let's say, regulations, more hindrances to the deal, may lead the European, or better said, the Mercosur side, to find other points that they would like to negotiate further, which may halt the implementation of the agreement. So all efforts that were done in the last year or last 2 years or so, since President Lula took seriously the deal and Europeans seem to want to reach an agreement in order to hinder themselves from Chinese competition and also from Trump's tariff wars, may simply vanish because Europeans are unable to reach a common ground for protecting their farmers.
And this firmly, in your opinion, seems to be on the European side to sort it out, whether they're going to agree to what's already on the table. I mean, if Brazil's deadline is to be stuck to, that's less than 2 weeks away.
Sorry, could you repeat, please, the question? I think there was a sound problem here.
No problem. My question to you is that Brazil has given less than 2 weeks as the deadline, and it would seem that the sticking point now appears to be, at least if I've interpreted your answers correctly, that Europe wants more concessions. And if they're granted, the deal isn't really worth it to the South American countries. And so would you say the potential of getting a deal actually through looks like it's closer to being off the table than on?
I think there is still hope that they reach an agreement. The big problem is really to make sure that farmers from Brazil and Argentina will not be betrayed. President Lula in particular, but also Argentine producers, although President Milei from Argentina is not so supportive of the agreement, they are really hoping that it's a chance for getting access to the European market. If the safeguards, their implementation can happen at any stage or without right justification, as it seems to be the case with this imposition of safeguards as they stand at this stage, I think that, as I said before, the Merkosur countries, particularly President Lula, may walk away from making a deal. So it's up to the Europeans to, yes, justify protection to their farmers, but as long as those protections are well justified and that doesn't leave, let's say, a shadow over the agreement, because that would be unacceptable, not just for President Lula or for any president of any Mercosur country, but for the farmers of Mercosur.
Thank you very much for your time, Vinicius Rodrigues Vieira, economist and professor at the Armando Alvarez Penteado Foundation.
Thank you very much.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.